Guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And our podcast is a business podcast where we interview entrepreneurs, coaches, business owners, people on the cutting edge. And today I'm happy to introduce Lauren Paige out of San Diego, California. And she is an entrepreneur. She helps entrepreneurs with life, with mindset. And I'm really happy to have her on the show. So, Lauren, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, especially with the women cohort, we do have a large audience tuning into the podcast, and talking about resilience and talk about transformation. So talk about your journey, how you got started, and we'll dive right into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to say I'm a serial entrepreneur back in the lemonade stand days. I don't think I've actually ever had a proper job where I've been hired, but my background was I went to school for nutrition. So it started in the nutrition and fitness world. I opened up a Pilates and bar wellness studio in Charleston, South Carolina when I was 25. And so, really, just a really integral season of life where I was so young. I didn't have any other ties, with a family or whatnot. And I could just kind of pour in all of that sweat equity into building a community, into building a wellness studio that was really thriving in our community. And then ultimately, my then husband brought us to San Diego, California. So I was kind of at this crossroads. I think a lot of people would have just kind of closed up shop and relocated. And I thought, well, never really sold a business before, but let's see how that process works. So I sold the brick and mortar. It went really, really well. And it was that catapulted me into starting really trying to bring this wellness and fitness thing online, which is the space that I've been in for the past, 8 or 9 years. And that morphed over the past few years into more holistic life and business coaching. So I got certified to be a life coach so that we could chat about more things besides just food and fitness. And then ultimately, what that transformed into was because I had done the brick and mortar thing and I had done the online thing, a lot of entrepreneurs, women especially, but coaches, consultants, marketing executives, wellness entrepreneurs were coming to me more so for business advice. So it's kind of this like part business consultant, part life coach.
Yeah, it's a really fat, and I love the best entrepreneurs I've talked to. They have all these really fascinating experience, and they combine it together, which is what you did. And I love Charleston, South Carolina. And one thing that's talking about is just this idea of with resilience and change. And you've moved over 12 times. You've built successful businesses. So what are some top strategies for adapting to change, building resilience, especially for underrepresented women in the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to give you two answers. One is if you're in the thick of it, if you are truly in a season of major life transition, of adversity, I think finding the small daily things that you can quite literally check off a list. So maybe it is a fitness program that you sign up for, some 8 week thing that you can just check off every day. Or maybe it's something like I'm going to read 10 pages every single day of personal or professional development. But it's got to be something that you've got to check off the list. Because during those times of adversity, like we're just seeking for something we can, quite frankly, we can control, some semblance of consistency and normalcy when there's a lot of other things that are so far out of our control. So that's like if you're in the acute season. If you are just like looking to shoot big and big dreams and the whole thing, I think really having that long-term vision where it is the thing that's going to get you out of bed on the hard days, where it's just as easy to say, it's not really a big deal if I like do the things that move the needle forward in my business or not.
Yeah, and I love this idea of short term and long term because sometimes like especially I'm very impatient, so like something that will take like a couple years, and it's just some days you don't see anything, but it's like you just gotta just check it off. My wife says another day, another dollar, which is
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
um and I love this idea of the other thing is talking about this idea where basically entrepreneurs were trained to like just hustle and grind, and just you have to talk about celebrating like wins, even like small wins, like you win one day. Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's seasons for everything. I've been in the entrepreneurial game like really full time, if we're going to call it that, for about 13 years. And I have been in seasons of extreme hustle and that kind of thing. And it, it gets a bad rap, but it also kind of got me to where I am. So at the same time, like I really preach that there's going to be seasons where things are more lax. There's going to be seasons where, like, yeah, maybe you are having to wake up at 5 a.m. and get a couple hours of work in before the kids go off to school. And just know that keeping the main priority, I think really there's 1 to 3 things per day that are truly going to move the needle forward for whatever the goal is, that you can really cut a lot of fluff. It's funny, one of the big things I hear a lot, because I work with women and a lot of them are mothers, I can tell you the best thing that happened for my business was becoming a mom, because
Mm,
it forced me to cut out all the fluff. I only had a certain amount of hours per day that we have childcare that I had to get my work done in. I could no longer just be this like ongoing entrepreneur all day where I didn't really have any like clock in, clock out hours. I was always kind of like working, but not. Now I know I have to get all of my work done between this hour and this hour. So I think if you can put some like time constraints on it, it also makes a big difference.
yeah. Yeah, the my follow-up question is this idea of mindset, because coaching and helping clients achieve their goals, it starts with mindset shifts. And so you've overcoming internal blocks, past traumas. So kind of discuss some of the common mindset challenges you and your clients face and how you guide them towards these small pivotal shifts.
Yeah, yeah. I think like you had spoken about, the quick wins is a big deal. But also, we hear we're supposed to seek support, or there's a lot of noise out there. Everyone's like listening to, as we're sitting here, I was about to say, everyone's listening to all these different podcasts as we're on a podcast interview. But one of the things that I like to really help people with is when you seek support for whatever this next, either this next level or overcoming trauma, is go all in on one person, because if you get a lot of mixed messages, you're not going to get far in any of the systems. Most of the time what's out there is usually pretty valuable. So when people say I love to listen to podcasts, like I'd rather than binge all of your podcast than shop around to a bunch of different ones, or to like truly read a book from start to finish if you're looking for more free offerings. If you do have the financial wherewithal to invest in a mentor or a coach, it is the cheapest way to learn.
Mhm.
You will move mountains so much quicker and so much more efficiently if you hire a coach, a support system, a therapist, a mentor. That's really the way to go.
Yeah. And also, one of this, I was talking with another entrepreneur, and they were talking about the power of masterminds, and
Yeah.
because you were talking about, I find that, after working with a coach, it's very inspiring, empowering, and you get a lot, and you get those quick wins. And talk about this power of masterminds.
Yeah, it's funny, when I went to hire my very first life coach, which I didn't really know what that was at the time, I was in a really hard season. I was going through a divorce unexpectedly. I lost my mom unexpectedly. So like a lot of like really meaty life stuff had come in. And I remember saying to the coach, like, okay, I signed me up for a year of one-on-ones or however this works. And she was like, I think you should be in my mastermind. And I was like, I don't want to be in a group chat. And what I found was, now it's like my most favorite way to learn, because you get so much insight from more, especially if you're in a container where either people are in the same industry, so it's a business mastermind, or they're in the same season of life, so it's like a lot of shared experiences. You move so much quicker and you have so much more collaborative insight. The other thing that's really interesting is, like say in a group coaching experience, you might be on a call and say like, well, that person's problem doesn't really apply to me. But then also you start listening and you're like, oh, that's a huge blind spot in my life that I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And those are kind of the things that'll really propel yourself. And, it's like a coach is like, it's a like, significant investment, but it's like, it'll save you years and years of just, struggling and, dilly-dallying, and they can point you on the right direction. And, masterminds are kind of like that fuel that sustains you. And the other question I have is, as a coach and life coach, and especially in this wellness space, as people grow and evolve, we were talking about this and where you have to almost like this point where you actually have to not, you have to be selective with who you tell your goals to because you don't want to tell it to the wrong people. And I've learned, as on this journey, just to keep my mouth shut, except to the like the one or two people that I really entrust. So talk about this idea where you have to kind of choose your inner circle and kind of let go of the naysayers.
Yeah, I think that's pretty critical. It's funny. I went from owning the gym to going into direct sales. And I had never done sales. I thought everyone thought I was going to be part of some pyramid scheme. I was just super nervous about it. So what I did was two things. One is I really kept blinders on, kind of what you're saying. Like it's almost like you're in a swimming lane and you're just looking straight ahead because I knew that if people were coming at me with judgments or even just loving questions, our family and friends are typically the ones that come at us the hardest because they're concerned we're doing something different than we've done before. I didn't think I'd have all the answers right away. So I needed to build my confidence. So I'd say if you're starting a new business, like kind of keep your eye on the prize, keep working the business as you gain more confidence in what you're doing. Then you'll be able to more naturally talk about what you're doing, answer people's questions if they're coming from like a place of just lovingly concern. And the other thing too is kind of going back to that support system. And this doesn't even necessarily mean you have to like hire a coach, but you've got to be surrounded by people who are just one step in front of you on that same path. Like I look at it from my space, if I go back to that direct sales experience, my mentor was number one in the entire company. It was $1 billion company. And she was number one in $1 billion company, which is very, very impressive. But as a new person coming into this, as much as I loved her and we have a really great relationship, I couldn't really relate to her success yet. So I found this little cohort of peers that were just a step above me. So I knew that it was possible. I thought, okay, well, I might not be able to be number one in $1 billion company, but I can certainly get to this next level and then I can get to that next level. So you've got to keep that tight inner circle close by.
Yeah, so well said. And I love this idea of choosing your peer group and you know, also it's just kind of protecting, your ideas and because it's like when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have all the answers and you kind of have to be selective. And then the next question a lot of individuals have is as entrepreneurs, they're dealing with their past traumas and their past failures and their social conditioning. And how do you block that out? And how do you listen to the things in your head and, your worries and your fears? Like, how do you sort all that out?
Yeah. Have you heard that quote that's like, entrepreneurship is just personal development wrapped up in a job? Like, like they're the only profession that like has to do some sort of personal or professional development. Well, if we look at it as two different things, one, that entrepreneurship is the long game. So if you are going through something traumatic, there might be days where your 100% is not necessarily what you would call your normal 100%. And it just is what it is. You've got to give yourself some grace. On the other side of it, if you are somebody who like deals a little bit better with more of the tough love model, if you will, people say like, how do I build confidence? What book do you recommend? What course do you recommend? The only way that you can build confidence is by doing. So this goes back to even if you've got stuff, we all have drama to some degree. And I know it's not fair that some people have really, really horrible things. I've had seasons of my life where I've had really, really horrible things, and even that is not bad as others. So you can't really like trauma compare. But if there's hard things going on in your life, I think you've got to establish for yourself, and everybody is different, your baseline. So like, what are the things in your business that absolutely have to get done? This is a pretty trivial example, but recently we just relocated within our same city. We just moved. And you saw my bio, I am a kid that moves around every couple of years. Like I am good at moving. It doesn't traumatize me. Like my nervous system is fine. But this is the first time I have moved. We have a set of 2-year-old twin toddlers. So it's the first time that we have moved where I'm running a business. I have twin toddlers. I have a romantic partner that like we're all managing each other's expectations over this. And it was challenging. And I had to just come to terms with the fact that for 3 weeks of this kind of upheaval, I was going to take really impeccable care of my clients, my paying clients. I was going to commit to my newsletter cadence that I always do and show up to my normal networking. This was not the time where I was going to put in some big social media strategy or go above and beyond and like other sales tactics because it just wasn't a season of growth for that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's like there's like seasons and even when I was first starting out, like because I realized, there's like, the first quarter, there's just like, kind of do and then like there's tax season, then there's like the summer months when you can like really focus, and then there's like the third quarter, you're winding down and kind of pigeonholing what you can do in those time periods, which is so talk about some of the work that you're doing with your clients, some success stories, and how can people reach out to you? I know you've got a huge following on Instagram and on YouTube as well, and how can they work with you?
So I do work with clients both one-on-one and, we're kind of practicing what we just talked about, practice what you preach. I love a group container. So I have a signature 6-month group container program. It is aimed towards women, but we really break down your business goals and we work on the whole facet of life. So I would say most people show up to increase their business revenue, which we do. And then they don't realize that they've like all of a sudden cleaned up their nutrition, their sex life is better, they're communicating with their children better. Just they have a deep understanding of who they are and how they operate in the world. So if that is something that you are looking to do, the best way to find me is, probably either through my website, lauren-page.com, or on IG, Lauren Paige. And you can just shoot me a DM and say you found me on your show, and I would love to connect. I always do complimentary consultations.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed this conversation because a lot of the audience are female entrepreneurs, so I think they can really resonate and relate to your story. And reach out to Lauren, follow her and like her on socials, uh, check out her services. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.